Hello, everybody. What's going on? This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. So today I'm back and I want to talk about racial disparity in home appraisal. So the reason why I come through here because just imagine, let's play a scenario. So imagine you have a house that is worth $350,000. A house that's worth $350,000. Then when you try to sell it for a price that you want, let's say you try to sell your house for 400 grand, right? And you have someone from a real estate company come along and look at your house. They look at the condition, look at the environment, look at everything. Because first thing they're going to look at is the environment, right? And they're going to look at the condition of the home to see if it's worth the money that you're trying to sell it for. So imagine that you can't sell the home. They tell you that, well, the home is not going to be able to be sold at 400 grand. It's going to have to be sold at around 300 grand. And then somebody else comes along and they bought the house. They bought a house at the same price, 350,000. They tried to sell it for 400,000. And that same person that worked for a real estate company comes along, look at the house, look at the condition, look at the environment that it's in, and say, well, okay, we can sell this home for 400, or we can go up a little higher. We could sell it for $420,000. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference in that case, because due to that, it's not that those houses, right, that's in the same neighborhood it's not that those houses in the same neighborhood are in bad condition or they're not any good or anything like that, or the area itself is bad. It's just there's the issue, and there's a thing called racism. Because you may have a black couple who own the house, who bought a house for $350,000, and you had a white couple that bought a house for $350,000. But because the black couple happened to be black, right, they couldn't sell that house for 400 grand. So they were told that the house is going to go up for 300. Whereas the white couple was told that, hey, their house is going to go up for $420,000. Well, there's a lot of that going on, racial disparity and home appraisal. So we're going to go into what a home appraisal is. And then from there, we're going to talk about the racial disparity, and I'm going to share some article. All right, so let's look at what home appraisal is first, so we become familiarized with these terminology. Okay, so let's look at what real estate appraisal is real quick. So real estate appraisal is property valuation or land valuation. Is the process. It's the process of developing an opinion of value for real estate property. Real estate transactions often require appraisals because they occur infrequently and every property is unique, especially their condition, a key factor in valuation. Unlike corporate stocks, which are traded daily and are identical, thus a centralized Warlasian auction like a stock exchange is unrealistic. The location also played a key role in valuation. However, since property cannot change location, it is often the upgrades or improvement to the home that can change its value. Appraisal reports form the basis for mortgage loans, selling estates, and divorce, taxation, and so on. Sometimes an appraisal report is used to establish a sale price for a property. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I just described when I played that scenario is what the real estate appraisal is. Basically, they'll what happened is during the real estate appraisal, there's a real estate agent or someone that works for the real estate agent come and look at the home, and they they rate the home based on the condition, based on the environment it's in. So say like the home is in a low income community. So the home could be pretty nice, but if it's in a very low income community or a community that's considered high crime, then the property of that home will go down, right? Or let's just say if the home had a bunch of issues like plumbing issues, or there's a lot of holes in the walls, or there needs to be a change of carpet or something like that, that can bring by the home that can bring down the value of the home. Or let's say you're in a nice area, but your neighbor next door lives in a shack, and then this neighbor over here got a bunch of stuff going on, like got a bunch of cars all over the driveway and everything else. Those things can bring down the home value. All right. And it depends on the county that you live in too, because every county is not the same. Some counties are different from others. And some states are different as well. But yeah, but the home value decreases based on the condition of the house, or it can increase based on the environment. So it's a lot of things that could play into effect. Okay. Now, the tough part is dealing with the racial disparity. Why? Because again, this country is built on the foundation of racism. This country is built on the foundation of racism. And the reason why, because it's always been told that black people, or it's always been the preconceived notion that black people are not as reliable and responsible when it comes to getting loans, when it comes to getting houses, with anything, even with banks. Like when you try to just get a loan from the bank, or if you're trying to get a loan for a car, whatever, it's always that preconceived notion that because of our race, that we don't have enough to pay back the bank and stuff, and they try to charge more interest, right? And it does happen. Okay, so this has been going on for the longest, and this is taking place across America. So I want to play a video clip, right? I'm just going to play the audio where there's a situation in Georgia. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and play the video.
Into southwest Georgia, likely just west of Valdosta by 11 o'clock tonight. And on WSB tonight, I'm going to be tracking these heavy bands because they will contain not just the heavy downpours, but some strong wind gusts. And then east of the centers, as these bands set up, there's a risk for an isolated brief spin-up tornado. That risk is low, but not zero. And it continues even into the morning hours. Again, near.
Okay, that wasn't the video. Hold on.
by the people who determine how much your home is worth.
It's a Channel 2 Action News investigation that affects the biggest investment most of us have, and that's our homes. Channel 2 consumer investigator Justin Gray talks to families who say they've experienced appraisal discrimination right here in Metro Atlanta.
The value of that appraisal is so important. It determines how much equity you have in the home. It's how families create generational wealth. We talked to homeowners who say they were forced to hide who they are to get a fair appraisal.
When we did the second appraisal, everything in here had to go.
Asmir Davis took Muhammad Ali off the basement wall, a painting of her child out of his bedroom. The extreme home makeover had one goal: to disguise the fact that the Davises are black.
It's a very well-known fact, especially in the Black communities, that our homes are undervalued significantly in comparison to white communities.
Davis learned that firsthand when she had the first appraisal done to refinance the mortgage on her Douglas County home.
So we're talking an appraisal that came back nowhere close to what you thought the value of the home
Nowhere
was.
close.
That appraisal came back barely more than what the family paid for the home back in 2015, before the recent real estate boom. So she asked the bank for a reappraisal, but first cleared out all traces of her family.
For the second appraiser, we removed not only everything in the home, but my husband and I removed ourselves.
When a white neighbor stood in for the family, the second appraiser valued the home at $640,000, nearly a 30% increase from just weeks earlier.
There's not much doubt in your mind what that was about.
Absolutely.
Sarah Hayden's family is hanging family photos on the walls in their new home in Missouri. But she took down all these prized family memories in her Metro Atlanta home after having the same experience as the Davis family.
I made arrangements for my husband to leave the house. I made arrangements for our nanny to take our son out of the house during the time of the appraisal.
After a first appraisal that came in well under the value of the home, Hayden felt she had to hide her biracial family.
We got the second appraisal back less than 24 hours later, and it came back at $504,000. So a huge difference. I mean, $70,000 difference.
It's a problem happening not just here in Metro Atlanta, but nationwide. The Biden administration has even created a special task force to address the issue called PAVE. I talked to the executive director, Melody Taylor.
The appraisal industry is 97% male-dominated, white-dominated.
Taylor says addressing that extreme lack of diversity among appraisers is among the top priorities in this action plan her White House task force issued.
The appraisal industry is loosely regulated, and that subjectivity, that bias can tend to be baked into various processes along the way.
Atlanta real estate agent Amy McCoy says she's seen it happen to too many families, but says there is something homeowners can do.
You're going to have to report it. You know, just like we want to talk to the manager when our cheeseburgers aren't right, right?
So Sarah Hayden filed an official complaint with the Federal Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity.
That's why I made the complaint, because I wanted other people to know, like, this happened to us. It can happen to anybody.
Customers can also do what both Hayden and Davis did: ask the bank for a second appraisal.
It behooves consumers to get educated around what's called reconsideration of values.
To have to remove yourself from it in order to get what is, justly yours is very demoralizing, and it's something that has to change.
Well, that's what happened when you deal with home appraisal. And that video clip that I played, where the white lady came along and said that she had to tell her husband to leave the house and get the biracial baby up out of there just so she can get the home at a value. Then the black woman had to get rid of the picture of Muhammad Ali and remove her and her husband up out the house just so the house can be worth some money. And she asked for a second appraisal just so from the bank so she can get whatever she need. But she had to go through the process, take every picture down, take everything that reminds an idea of a black image, and she had to get rid of her pictures, get rid of her family photos so she can get the proper appraisal. Now I just want to share this. I want to share this these two articles, right? Now, one of the articles come from kzan.com, ksan.com, and this deals with this is out of Texas. It says study finds racial discrimination in home value appraisal across the country and in Texas. Check this out. Right here. And it says in Austin, in comparing similar homes with similar amenities in neighborhoods of the same economic status, researchers found homes in white areas were appraised at double the value of homes in communities of color, according to a news report. Or, excuse me, according to a new report. Further, they said the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated this trend. Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, conducted the research. They analyzed over 32 million home appraisal in metropolitan regions with population over 500,000 across the country. The researchers only included cities with at least 50,000 people of color in the analysis. They found homes in white neighborhoods were appraised as worth $371,000 more than homes in communities of color. Then goes on to say racial inequality in home values directly contributes to the persistent racial wealth gaps and residential segregation, which in turn influences racial inequalities in health, income, and educational outcome, the report read. Adam Perdue, an economist at the Texas A&M Real Estate Research Center, said the results of this study are unsurprising, and this phenomenon exists in Texas cities. The same background systematic issues at the Washington University researchers have been able to find across the country are present here in the state of Texas too, Perdue said. Racism is a large driver of the continuing differences. You don't end Jim Crow and then expect people who have been slaves and oppressed for 150 years to just catch up. Again, he says, racism is a large driver of the continuing differences. You don't end Jim Crow and then expect people who have been slaves and oppressed for 150 years to just catch up. And that's a fact. You can't just end Jim Crow, right? And people who just got out of slavery, which has not been too long ago. When we got Jim Crow, that hasn't been too long ago. And you expect for everybody to catch up, everybody get with the program. And this comes from, people in our own community. We think that, oh, well, this is something that we can just get over and we just got to catch up and we just got to get with the program. No, it doesn't work like that. This is a systematic thing. And I don't think people realize that it's systematic and it has been going on for the longest. So there's a book called The Cost of Black America. It's called Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. So it's a book written by this book is written by Sean D. Roster. Okay, let me pull it up. All right, so and then there's another one. It's called The Hidden Cost of Being African American. How Wealth Perpetuates Inequality. So right here, Let's go down to where it says wealth has been neglected. So it says wealth has been a neglected dimension of the social science concerned with the economic and social status of Americans in general and racial minorities in particular. We have been much more comfortable describing and analyzing occupational, educational, and income inequality than examining the economic foundation of a capitalist society, private property. And it says when wealth surveys became available in the mid 1980s, journalists and social scientists began to pay more attention to the issue of wealth. The growing concentration of wealth at the top and the growing racial wealth gap have become important public policy issue that undergird many political debates, but unfortunately not many policy discussion. And it goes on to say, social scientists typically analyze racial inequality as imbalances in the distribution of power, economic resources, and opportunity. Most research on racial inequality has focused on the economic dimension. This economic component has emphasized jobs and wages. Until very recent, the social science and the policy arena neglect the effect of wealth disparity and inheritance on the different opportunities and well-being of white and black families. We are suggesting that wealth motivates much of what Americans do, grounds their life chances, and provide enduring advantages and disadvantages across generation. Wealth ownership is the single dimension on which whites and blacks are most persistently unequal. So, now with that being said, we are looking at in this book, according to this book right here, so now what you see when it comes to racial disparity and home appraisals is dealing with so much the wealth gap and the economic gap between blacks and whites. So what we see also is that someone who is non-black, especially a white person, is have more advantage of getting loans and getting things they need for homes and getting their homes sell at a higher value than somebody that's black. Because a lot of times we don't come from most of us don't come from generational wealth. Most of us do not have generational wealth. So because because of the racial wealth gap, it's hard for many of us to get the home loans that we need and be approved for them, right? Now, let's look at the other book that I was telling you guys about. The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. Okay, well, there's no preview for this book. All right, so so here's where you can so you can find this book on Amazon, The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America, which is 1443 by Sean D. Rochester. Okay. And you can, if you have a Kindle, you can get it for $9.99, and it's a free app on there. And you can listen the audiobook as well if you have the Audible app. But yeah, this book came out in 2018. Now let's see what we can find in here. All right, so it says what is a black tax, right? Black tax in the real estate market, black tax in the automobile market, black tax in auto insurance market. Just to give you an idea. And this book looks so interesting. I need to get it myself. Okay, so the author explained why he called this book The Black Tax. He said the black tax, the cost of being black in America, is book 2 in the Good Steward Financial Empowerment series, is a continuation of my first book. So let's just go down. It says the black tax. Over the last 20 years, I have read various articles about the impact of implicit bias on African Americans. The research looked at various marketplaces such as housing, business, finance, the automotive industry, online commerce, and employment. In each article, the often significant causes were based on the findings of studies conducted by researchers at distinguished American universities and institutions. As I read the articles, these causes seem like a series of unjustified taxes on Black Americans. I saved the articles and decided that some point in future I will try to quantify the cumulative effect of those taxes. So basically, he wrote that book because based on his research, he sees the unfair and discrimination towards African Americans, whether it be in the automobile industry, whether it be in housing industry, whatever it is, he's seen all of that. Okay. So you can get that book again from Amazon. And so the book is 14. Whoa. Yeah, the book is 1443. And then the next book is called The Hidden Cost. Yeah, the next book is called The Hidden Cost of Being African American, right? Now that book, now this book was written back in 2005. It was written back in 2005, but the cost of it is $10 to $17.84 for the paperback, and the hardcover is $17.54. All right. So the hidden cost of being African American, how wealth perpetuates inequality. All right, and I'm sure that a lot of people know about this particular book here, The Color of Law: A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America. All right, which that book is 1253. And this book right here is called The Color of Money: Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap, which is $16.95. Okay. All right, so these are the books that you guys can look into And you can find out more information about the racial wealth gap. I mean, so many books out there that's going into details on this. Now let's check this out. All right, so this next article here is come from planetzen.com. I'm gonna post it up for you guys. It's called planetzen.com. I think that's the name of it. So the report, a racial gap in home appraisal increasing, right? This came out November 4th of 2022. And it says a new report highlights the racial gap in home appraisal using recent government data to show that homes in predominantly white neighborhoods are assessed at and on average twice as much as comparable homes in communities of colors. Now it says right in Kinder Institute for Urban Research, Urban Edge, Nancy Cernoff outlines the result. The report's findings shows that rather than improving over time, racial inequality in residential appraisal has worsened over the past decade, with the discrepancy growing even faster during the pandemic. By comparing similar homes in neighborhoods with the same socioeconomic status, comparable entities, home in white neighborhoods were valued at $371,000 more than their counterparts in communities of colors. Cernoff as that the neighborhood racial gap in appraised value increased by 75% or 157,000 from 2013 to 2021. This discrepancy makes a major impact on the ability of families to build equity and generational wealth. A low appraisal can reduce a home's market value and affect how much money a bank will lend on the purchase of that home. The report recommends two actions for addressing the gap: reparation through target tax credit or stimulus programs, and a new appraisal approach that does not rely on past sales. Reparation. There that word, reparation, right? Reparation through target tax credit. But how much would you get for it? And how would it benefit? How do we go about getting the reparation that we need so we can be able to afford the homes? Now, do you guys see why many Black people in particular do not own homes? Because it's hard for them to get loans on them. And those that stay in houses, most of the time they rent those homes by their landlords. Now, some do what's called rent to own, mean you pay the rent and you eventually own the house, right? But most of us either get Section 8 or either we rent the homes or we live in apartments, because we do not, most of the time, we don't get qualified for the loans that we need to purchase the houses that we want. And the houses that we really want is way in the outskirts. It's not even in the city. But let's follow how this works. When there's gentrification taking place within the city alone, right? You got the dominant group, which is white people. They move back into the areas, so those housing markets go up, while the housing in the outskirts become a lot cheaper. So guess who's gonna move out into the outskirts? The people of color, while the whites move into and back into the city. And then when the whites move out the city and they move back to the outskirts, the homes within the city starts to become low and they become very cheap. And guess who moved back into those cities? People of color, Black people. So what I'm saying is, when white people leave out any area, the money is going to go out. And so when you have other communities of colors, especially those who are representing those that are the lowest in society, there is no money coming in. There's little to no money. And that's how it usually works. So anytime there's something being remodeled or being gentrified, the people with the money gonna come in, and the folks who don't really have the revenue have to go out elsewhere to where they can find cheaper property. Yep. And that's how the game is played. So when we talk about get rid of racism, get rid of racism how? How do you get rid of it? That's the foundation. That's the foundation that controls the narrative of this country. That's the principle. How do you get rid of that? How do you get rid? If you're going to get rid of racism, you got to start over again. Everything's got to be torn down and built back up. That means you got to start from the economics to the politics to the social. And if you got to deal with the economic level of it, then you got to hit the pockets of those who are privileged and who are wealthy. Now that becomes a serious problem. So again, is racism going to go anywhere anytime soon? No. Because racism is what brings about the wealth of certain people. And yes, we got black celebrities, they are wealthy, but look at what's going on. You already see what happened to Kanye, right? When he opened his mouth. You see what happened to Kanye. So now Kanye done went from being a billionaire to being back a millionaire, a multimillionaire. And Puffy done took his spot. So what they go to show you? We didn't build generational wealth. What we had to do, right? What our people had to do in order to get to that level, they had to get endorsement. So what Kanye did in order to get to that level to become a billionaire was through endorsement, through deals, partnership. Once he lost all that partnership and endorsement, his money started to decrease. So the very same people that told him he was a billionaire was the very same people that took away his status. And as we could see, Adidas said that they're going to lose over about $250 million because Kanye's name is no longer on the brand. So they're going to keep selling the Yeezy, but his name just won't be on the brand. His name is no longer on the brand. Now let me look at the racial wealth again. Let me show y'all an article. Let me show you guys an article that came out a long time ago. Now, this article came out in 2016 by Wall Street. Let me show y'all something. Real quick. All right, so right here, according to Wall Street Journal, it would take 228 years for Black families to amass wealth of white families, analysis says. And this came out August the 9th of 2016. So 228 years, that's how long it would take for African American families or African Americans to accumulate the same amount of wealth whites have now if current policies remain in place, according to a new analysis from the Corporation for Enterprise Development and Institute for Policy Studies. So the stunning estimate is part of a study the two groups released this week on the racial wealth divide in the U.S., highlighting the growing disparity between Americans of color and everyone else, a policy that contributes to a widened divide and proposals to help reverse the trend. And it goes on to say that CFED and IPS looked at 30 years of data from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, which includes information on Americans' balance sheet, income, pension, and demographic characteristics. Over the past 30 years, they found the average wealth of white families have grown by 84%, 3 times as fast as the rate of African American families, and 1.2 times the growth rate for Latino families. To put that in dollar terms, if the past 30 years were to repeat, whites would see their wealth increase by $18,000 a year on average, while Latino household wealth would increase in average by $2,250 a year, and a wealth for African Americans would grow by just $750 annually. And it goes on to say, at the current rate, it will take until the year 2241 for the average Black family to accumulate wealth equal to what white families have today. And it will take Latinos until 2097 to reach partly with whites. The report said, assuming the average wealth of whites family holds steady at today's level. And it says that wealth divide had narrowed in the years leading up to the Great Recession, but has since expanded in the wake of widespread foreclosure and job losses that hit the African American and Latino communities partly hard, said Derek Asante Muhammad, the director of CFED's Racial Wealth Divide Project. So, according to that article, it will take 228 years for African Americans to catch up with the white counterpart. So you're looking at 2241. By the year 2241, that's when Blacks can finally catch up with their white counterpart as far as the wealth gap is concerned. 228 years. That's going to be a very long time. So what that means is because we don't have access to wealth right now, and in order for us to have access to wealth, it's going to take 228 years for us to do so. There's something to really think about. But this all plays into the effects of racial disparity in home appraisal. So all that information I showed you in the books that I showed you guys, that plays a part in that. All right. So what I could do is I can type up the name of the books, right? And recommend you guys to check those books out. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and close it out. I hope you guys have a good one. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, and make sure you subscribe and like my channel, hit my channel, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, peace and power, elevation be to all of you. This your girl, Tiffany. Deuces. Y'all be safe. All right. Thank you.